Stronghold of Sufis in Sinai. Why have this group, most people pointing fingers here at ISIS in the Sinai, why have they gone after Sufi Muslims?
They are not going only after Sufi Muslims. They are going after those whom they think are infidels, even if they are Islamists. And they see the Sufis as infidels. They see many other Sunnis as infidels. They see the Shiites as infidels. So according to their ideology, the ideology of the extremist Islamic groups from the school of the Muslim Brotherhood, is that if a Muslim does not behave accordingly to the Quran and to the Sharia, is an infidel and he should be killed. Now, they do not agree to the habits of the Sufis. They do not agree to the way the Sufis understand the Quran and the Sharia, and therefore the Sufis are inter alia also targets.
Lastly, I want to ask you, as a former Mossad chief, how has Israel, and perhaps how will Israel, assist Egypt in the wake of this attack to prevent such intelligence failings once again?
Well, I think that it is an Israeli interest to see the Egyptian armed forces and the Egyptian administration take control in the Sinai, because those terrorists which today operate against Egyptian targets might operate tomorrow against Israeli targets, and in addition to it, it might influence, let's say, extremist cells which are in the Gaza Strip and Israel itself. Therefore, for us, it is very important that the Egyptians will succeed. And there are many, many ways of assisting them, but I think that it will be not wise to speak about it openly.
Not wise. Okay, ex-Mossad chief and former member of Israeli parliament, Danny Yatom, thanks for your insight on this as we move along.
You're welcome.
2 days after hosting Syrian President Bashar al-Assad in Moscow, Russian President Putin says he has won the backing of Turkey and Iran to host a Syrian peace congress in what he termed a new stage in the Syria crisis. Here's that.
Уверенностью констатировать, что мы подошли к новому этапу, открывающему возможность приступить к реальному политическому процессу урегулирования. Считаю, что наши усилия должны быть сосредоточены на обеспечении долгосрочной нормализации в Сирии, прежде всего, имея в виду процесс политического урегулирования с финализацией этих переговоров в рамках Женевского процесса и на содействие обустройству страны в постконфликтный период.
Debka Files analysts pointing out two major hurdles in Russia's quest for a quick breakthrough to a political solution of the nearly 7-year-old civil war. First, the fate of Syria's 2.5 million Kurds and their YPG militia. Russia brought Kurdish political and military leaders together with al-Assad regime officials to negotiate a measure of autonomy for their 3 cantons in northern Syria. That's Hasakeh, Kobane and Afrin. At the Sochi summit, our sources report, Putin and Erdogan agreed to offer the Kurds special status for their provinces that are under Russian protection, hoping to bring the Kurds into the Russian fold. The second challenge to Russia on negotiating peace in Syria, the northern province of Idlib. It's the only part of Syria still dominated by rebel forces, namely Hayat Tahrir al-Sham. That's the former al-Qaeda-linked Nusra Front. Putin looking to disarm these rebels through negotiation, and failing this by siege and blockade, calling on the Syrian People's Congress to a meeting in Sochi on December 2nd to discuss a new Syrian constitution. This will take place after a new round of UN-backed peace talks in Geneva due to resume this week. Take a listen to the agenda set out by the deputy of the UN Special Envoy to Syria.
العملية السياسية عملية صعبة ومعقدة لأنه الوضع في سوريا معقد وبنبني استراتيجيتنا على خطوة ثم خطوة ثم خطوة وأرجو أن الاجتماع القادم أو الجولة القادمة بمشاركة فعالة من الحكومة مع وجود وفد واحد من المعارضة تساهم في دفع العملية إلى الأمام.
Staying with Syria, and Israel's Security Cabinet held a special session over the situation on its northern borders. Debka files military sources saying Hezbollah, the Lebanese Shiite militia group, has begun massing forces in southern Syria. This after the Israeli Prime Minister, Benjamin Netanyahu, warned the Syrian president that Israel will strike regime and allied military targets if Iran is allowed to set up bases in the country. Netanyahu reportedly notifying Assad via Russian envoys. This according to senior officials in Jerusalem. Now, this marks the first time Israel has ever sent an ultimatum to the Assad regime, warning Israel will strike the Syrian army and other targets allied to Damascus. Debka files military sources adding that this is a preemptive step after learning Tehran is pressing Damascus to allow it to use Syria's largest Air Force facility, the T4 Tias military airbase. That's located between Homs and Palmyra. Let's bring in a senior former commander of the Israeli Air Force, Kobi Regev, with us in studio now. Kobi, we just heard that Netanyahu sent a direct warning to Damascus for the first time. What weight does this message carry, and I guess what kind of response can we expect from this?
Well, Netanyahu understands completely that Israel cannot accept any presence of Iran in Syria, especially not a physical one. Netanyahu knows for many, many years the Iranian dealing with them in many, many aspects. And he knows that the real intention of the Iranian right now in Syria is not helping Assad deal with his inner issues, but mainly to confront Israel and maybe to hit it, the border between Israel and Syria, which was quite calm for the last 10, 20 years.
But Israel is looking to defend this territory that it captured in 1967. But could these threats, or even threats with action, escalate, in fact, ending up sparking a major regional conflict?
I think it's possible. Let me give you an example. For the last 2 months, the Syrian regime has fired more than 3 SA-5 missiles, ground-to-air missiles, against the F-16 fighter jets in Lebanon, doing surveillance missions. We know that the Iranian was behind it, and they was urging the Syrians to shoot those aircraft, to set a new kind of rules of where we are allowed and not allowed to fly in Lebanon. And this action forced Israel to retaliate. So we attacked several of SA-5 batteries. So this kind of influence can really hit it and make problems in the Middle East.
You're a former commander of the IAF. How crucial is it that Tehran not get use of that T4 Tias airbase we mentioned earlier? That's the biggest in Syria. How far do you think Israel will go to prevent that happening?
First of all, we need to understand that there's a difference between a theoretical presence via diplomatic and influence and a physical presence in Syria. The physical presence in Syria is quite dangerous to Israel. First of all, it increases the influence in Iran all around the Middle East. The second thing, it can enable the Iranian to project power toward Israel by, let's say, if they want to transfer some kind of a message or a threat to Israel, they can take one of their aircraft, just do a flyby near our borders. This is something the Israeli cannot accept and will not accept.
Kobi, is that why Israel has just upped their military budget? They added $1.4 billion. That's in addition to the Israeli army's annual budget. Is the focus here all on Iran and Syria, and what will that money be used for?
Well, the defense establishment of Israel is very organized and is doing a long-term planning, which include thinking of what will be the challenges using intelligence, and then how to set up the capabilities to tackle those challenges. Once you have a new element, a big change in the arena, then you need to do some adjustment to this program. The involvement in Iran now in Syria is a serious thing. So the defense establishment take it very seriously. She understands in order to tackle it and to be ready, she need to have new capabilities. And this is why I believe our Minister of Defense has asked some more budget.
All right, Kobi Regev, former senior commander of the Israeli Air Force, thank you for your insight.
Thank you very much.
Meanwhile, the Saudi Crown Prince has announced a plan for a Saudi-led de-escalation zone in southern Syria. It will rival the two other zones established by Russia and the United States. The announcement comes after Riyadh withdrew its support from the Syrian rebel movement earlier this year. But by early September, the prince had already secretly ordered Saudi intelligence agencies to re-establish ties with 50 or so rebel militia of the so-called Southern Front in Syria. Our sources report in the early stages, Saudi officials made back-channel contact with Jordan's King Abdullah, as well as with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, to notify them of the prince's plan to set up that southern Syrian de-escalation zone. Now, the zone is designed to stretch 40 kilometers from the borders of Jordan and Israel, starting from the northern edge of the Syrian Golan opposite the Israeli-held Mount Hermon slopes, and ending in southeastern Syria in the Suwaida district of Jabal Druze. Jordan and Israel reassured by Riyadh that the zone would be manned by a military force sent to tackle the Khalid ibn al-Walid militia, which is now allied to the Islamic State after wedging itself into the Syrian-Jordanian-Israeli border triangle.